Prue, well, poor old Rowan too. I really feel for everyone in New South Wales tonight. You've got one more week to go. I tell you, it's terrible. Rowan, if I can start with you, what about this business? There's already one Australian business out there saying that if you get vaccinated, staff will get the chance to win an all-expenses paid holiday to Hawaii. I think that's okay if the business wants to pay for it, but honestly, as a taxpayer, we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on this pandemic anyway. I'm actually opposed to any more money being spent to get people to take the jab. Just get out there and have the jab. Let's save some money here, please.
Yeah, well, there's two really important issues there, Peter. The first is incentivising versus coercion. And the second one, which you've touched on, is, of course, the taxpayer having to pay. So on the first issue, I'm 100% in favour of any business who wants to incentivise people, give them whatever, a trip to Hawaii, a lottery ticket, doesn't matter. The reality is that COVID and the vaccination are numbers games. So if people want to incentivise individuals for whatever reasons, if the government wants to incentivise people, they had a lottery for the Opera House all those years ago, by all means, have a lottery and the winner walks away with $5 million or whatever. But coercion, Peter, is utterly unacceptable. And we've got to be really clear, that is the dividing line. That is the only dividing line that matters here, the difference between incentivising people to take the vaccine and coercing people to take the vaccine. Now, I don't want to go back into your entire Innes Wilcox interview there, but I was deeply disturbed by some of the things he said because they're sounding increasingly like coercion. The idea that you get your job only once you're vaccinated. I understand it for frontline workers, obviously that's a no-brainer, but for other people, And then you have this whole issue, Peter, of the government saying today, well, vaccinated people within Australia will be free of the restrictions, whereas other Australians won't. That's two classes of Australians, completely unacceptable. And as I've said before, it goes against the Helsinki Declaration, it goes against the Geneva Declaration if a government or a bureaucrat starts coercing any individual to take any drug against that individual's specific wishes.
Look, it all sounds very simple in high principle, but when you get down to the nitty-gritty, when they start to implement this plan, put some numbers against it, dates against it, it's where it's fraught for government. In New South Wales, Prue, the opposition leader there, Chris Minns, just new to the job, but I think he's making his mark. He's backing in this plan from the union for yet more paid leave, this time for vaccinations for anyone in the public sector, so that's public servants in New South Wales. Now, fair enough, if you get the jab and you have a couple of days where you're not well afterwards, you need to take leave. But surely that's what sick leave is designed for. We don't need any more leave.
Oh, this is more dog whistling by the Labor Party, to woo the public servants, make sure they shore up the vote. And, of course, the unions. The unions want to make sure that they justify the membership dollars and make themselves relevant, so they're going out for it. It's absolutely absurd. The rest of us do it in our lunch hour or after work, and we take our sick leave.
Interesting, Rowan, do as I say, not as I do. After successfully campaigning in National Cabinet to cut all the numbers of international arrivals, so Australians coming home, it's been revealed that Queensland and WA have brought in more foreign doctors than any other state during the pandemic. These numbers in the Australian Financial Review out today say that in the 9 months to April this year, 431 visas have been granted to resident medical doctors in Queensland, 340 in WA. I mean, the hypocrisy from Anastasia Palaszczuk and Mark McGowan is extraordinary. I shouldn't be surprised, but I think I am.
Well, you're right not to be surprised. You've got used to hypocrisy from all the Labor premiers on so many issues to do with COVID. The reality is that the single smartest thing that Australia has done was slamming the borders shut to the Chinese back whenever it was 15 months ago, and we should have remained COVID-free. We've been pretty much COVID-free. 900 deaths, awful for those deaths, but and those families. But in essence, we've been COVID-free. But that requires a good quarantine system, and we've failed repeatedly on that front. Were we to continue with with closed borders and a good quarantine system, we wouldn't have any problems. But we've seen repeatedly So you have on the one hand Anastasia Palaszczuk and others saying, stop bringing people in, this is what's causing COVID, and at the same time they're bringing loads and loads of people in. The games that have gone on, Peter, between the premiers and the government, I think the National Cabinet was a joke, a disgrace right from the beginning. It's anti-democratic. It's put too much power into the hands of state premiers who weren't elected by the rest of us. And removed the decision-making power from the backbenchers and the cabinet of the federal government, and that's been a real shame.
I want to just grab you, if I can, on this breaking sort of story out of the US this week. Donald Trump's former right-hand man has pleaded not guilty to tax evasion. Alan Whistleberg, a long-standing CFO at the Trump Organization, is the subject of 15 accusations by New York prosecutors, including conspiracy and tax fraud. There's a lot of move in the US to go after the Donald Trump Organization. Prue, is this a witch hunt or will it be kept up?
Absolutely. No, it's a total witch hunt. They've been after him for years from the tax side of things, but also just generally. It's run by Democrats, and after 2 years, all they've got is a bit of FBT against some employees, a couple of employees. So they'll keep going after him, of course, but it's just a joke. America has become a joke, sadly, because the Democrats are just so incensed and they're delusional and crazed over this man. They're going to go after him as much as they can.
Well, we've missed you on Outsiders, Rowan Dean. I presume you're back on Sunday?
You betcha. All fired up, Peter. Can't wait.
Good man. Prue McSwain, you look after yourself, Prue. Rowan Dean, see you on Sunday. Thank you both for your time.
Thanks, Peter.